Hello, I'm Lucy from Bookshanks and I'm here today to review Sweet Sorrow by David Nicholls. If you are looking for a book to give you all the summer feels, this one by David Nicholls, Sweet Sorrow, might just be the book for you. It is the fifth novel by Nicholls, who is probably most well known for One Day, the love story that followed doomed couple through the ages, which I read years and years and years ago and absolutely loved, along with an awful lot of people and even more people when it was made into a massive Hollywood blockbuster. But Nicholls is actually the author of, I think, 5 novels. His last one was Us and was longlisted for the Booker. And if you are a Nicholls fan, if you have read him before, this book is incredibly on brand. It's essentially a love story. It's a romance book. It follows 16-year-old Charlie. He has finished school for the summer after his GCSE exams, and everyone is promising him that this is going to be the best summer of his life, and yet much as he wants to feel it, he just doesn't. He knows that he has not done well in his exams. He didn't turn up for half of them. Doesn't really help. He is drifting apart from his childhood friends. He doesn't feel that they are the people that are right for him anymore. His parents' marriage has disintegrated. His mother has moved out, taking his sister with her, but leaving him with his chronically depressed father, who can barely get out of bed. In desperation to get out of the house, Charlie takes to cycling round his town all day, every day, just to be anywhere but home. Eventually, he stumbles across a girl who he really rather likes, and it leads him to sort of accidentally join a amateur dramatics theatre group, basically just to get close to Fran. And the group, kind of predictably, are putting on a story of Romeo and Juliet. And Charlie is determined that he is not only not going to stay for very long, only until he's got Fran's attention, but also he is not going to have fun while he's there. But, you know, as the story progresses and he and Fran get closer, he also finds sort of this love of, kind of love of theatre, but actually it's more about, you know, him sort of discovering a bit of self-confidence and that he can be an individual and all these things along the way. The fact that Romeo and Juliet is the sort of play that they're putting on is, quite clearly, mirroring the love story of Charlie and Fran. And in the hands of a lesser writer, it probably would have made me roll my eyes. But it actually is done incredibly well and not overdone. And it helps that Charlie is not Romeo. He is in fact Benvolio, who is a pretty good reflection of his real life persona, because he's actually called Nobody at school is his nickname, and because he's just so forgettably average, as is Benvolio, sidekick territory through and through. Now, I did say, I think, that this is very on brand David Nicholls, and it is, it totally is. He has found that total sweet spot between literary fiction and commercial fiction. I think, pretty much better than anyone I can think of. He just nails that sort of, not only the storytelling, but the language, and just, there's a total sweet spot that gives it just the broadest appeal. He just has this gift as well for just charming nostalgia. This is set in 1997, so the summer of 1997, in sort of middle England, sort of very average Britain. And the protagonist at age 16 in 1997 is older than I was in 1997, but not by a squillion years, and it is immensely relatable, sort of the terribly average comprehensive school, and the weekend job at the corner shop, and even the bar in the friend's basement, Hi Lisa. It is just so incredibly relatable, to me at least, in many, many ways. And I think that it would be relatable to an awful lot of people actually, because it's not just about the setting which he captures, but you know, even if you're not of that era or if you're not British, he just nails adolescent emotions, I think. You know, this time when you're told, you know, everything is open to you and you have so many opportunities, but actually it's a really, you know, quite frightening and worrying time in many ways too. Most of Charlie's worries actually relate to his father in particular, to his parents and particularly his father, who, you know, he has this terrible fear of going home and finding that his father has killed himself. And it is just really excruciating to read. And actually, for me, the relationship between him and his parents was more engaging than Charlie's relationship with Fran. And I think it's because Fran, to me, didn't have an enormous amount of depth. She was very ordinary. And actually Charlie's very ordinary, and that's part of his charm, but because we can see inside him, you know, you can feel him too, whereas Fran was just ordinary from the outside, which didn't engage me so much. Whereas the emotions that Charlie has and the relationship that Charlie had with his father was sort of the real pull of the novel for me. The other thing that I would say about this is that, my goodness, David Nicholls is a storyteller. I know he writes for television. I know he's worked in theatre in the past. You know, he knows how to tell a story, how to lay out the yarn and reel you in. And for the first half of the novel, he absolutely had me hooked. I mean, there's so much warmth and humour in the way that he does it too, that I was just carried along in this love story and thoroughly, thoroughly enjoying it. However, what this book didn't have that I felt One Day had was the climax. You know, that absolute emotional gut punch was just kind of missing from this book. And I kind of was thinking, right, and I guess you've got, you know, this is a book about ordinary people. And books about ordinary people are absolutely fine and brilliant. You know, they totally work when the ordinary people are put in extraordinary circumstances and have to deal with extraordinary things. But I kind of felt like I was waiting for that thing to happen. I was waiting for sort of it to hit second gear, and it just kind of didn't. They were ordinary people who did ordinary things throughout the entire novel. And I don't know whether, you know, I'm trying to think of an example of where that's happened and that's just been brilliant. And I can't quite. I'm sure it must exist. I'm sure it must exist. And don't get me wrong, you know, I actually did really enjoy it all the way through. And I think that anyone who has read David Nicholls and enjoyed him before will read this book and enjoy it too. But if One Day had you, you know, sobbing on the sofa like it did me, you know, it probably isn't going to do that for you. It doesn't have, you know, quite the same punch. But overall, you know, it is a really lovely and enjoyable summer read, written by an absolute pro. His writing is so fluid, so warm, so empathetic. His characters generally really deep and rounded and lovely. And one that, yeah, I definitely do think it is worth picking up if you like a love story, you know, with a good dose of nostalgia and depth. Oh, do you know what it reminded me of? It was kind of a bit of a Rainbow Rowell thing going on there, with a little bit of Eleanor and Park. It's got kind of echoes of that, but I probably kind of preferred Eleanor and Park a little bit. Anyway, I won't tell you the ending. I won't tell you what happens, whether it's happy ending or not. You'll just have to read it for yourself. But there you go. Sweet Sorrow by David Nicholls. Love the colours too. Completely irrelevant. If you've read it, if you've read any David Nicholls, if you've got any similar sort of like love story recommendations with a bit of bite too, then I'm always up for something like that. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you soon. Bye!